Jeans, shoes, and a fucking rocking attitude. What comes to your mind when I say these three things? That's right, today I'm talking about Crash Bandicoot. So I've been a pretty big Crash fan for a hot decade now, but until last year I'd never really played the first three games. I played this, and worst of all this, but never the first three games. But when the Crash Insane trilogy came out on Switch, I thought that would be a great opportunity to try the first three games out. So I'm here today to review the first three games in the Crash Bandicoot series. Starting out, Crash 1. So this game was remade in 2016 along with its two subsequent sequels, and those are the versions I'm going to be playing today. Crash Bandicoot was made as a 2.5D game, with half the game being centered behind Crash and the other half with the camera to the side, more like a traditional 2D platformer. Hell, the game was even codenamed Sonic's Arse Game for a while, since for a chunk of the game you'd be centered behind Crash, therefore looking at his arse, and I don't have a problem with this. I like this playstyle, and by addition I like looking at Crash's arse, but I don't like the more traditional 2D sections. Now personally I like 3D over 2D, but that's not where the problem is, because the controls just aren't tight enough to be a 2D platformer, so I often miss jumps I feel like I should have been able to make. Also, I don't know if this is a problem with my controller. I played Shovel Knight like this right afterwards and I had no problems. But for some reason, if I use a thumbstick to control this game, every now and then Crash decides to go all immobile on me and start moving at a snail's pace. Which wouldn't be a huge problem, but he also decides to do that in the air, killing me. So you might be thinking, we'll just use the D-pad. But here's the thing. Because this game is dumb, stupid, and dumb, when you're in a 2D section, you can still move a little bit into the third dimension. And my fat thumbs make it so sometimes I literally just miss a jump. Not because I under or overshot it, but because I went around it. In a 2D section. Now, while I did spend a pretty big amount of time bitching about the 2D sections, they're all pretty well designed. If it wasn't for the iffy controls, I'd have a hell of a lot more fun with them. But hey, 3D sections are in my opinion where the game shines. So why is that? Well, first, hey, these sections control pretty well. I mean, the moveset's limited with a jump and a spin, and that's all. This game is just a 2D platformer except in 3D. I mean, when it comes to the more 3D parts, I feel like there's nothing in them you couldn't do in a 2D game. But hey, if a mediocre game is in your style, how does the game look? Well, as I mentioned, I'm playing the remakes of this game, which decide to bring the whole looking nice thing into mix. But even on the original hardware, this game looks pretty good for the time. Sure, Crash was essentially an oversized Dorito, but the jungle theme is pretty nice. But I'm afraid this game has a case of Donkey Kong Country 1-itis, because there's not too many different locales you visit, look-wise. You have the castle theme, the machinery theme, the jungle theme, and a couple standouts. I know this is a pretty early game for the PlayStation, but I would have liked a couple more themes and locales. Now, if I know the law, and trust me I do, I've been arrested for loitering at least 5 times now. It's essentially illegal to make a review of Crash Bandicoot without talking about the crates in this game. So instead of coins, rings, or any other weird floating collectible, this game has boxes. Now, Crash also has a more streamlined collectible in the form of Wumpa Fruit, a made-up tropical fruit that you collect to get lives, but the boxes are a bit more interesting. You can jump on them to break them, also giving you a height boost. There's TNT boxes that when jumping on them start a 3-second countdown. And this isn't in Crash 1, but in the next 2 Crashes there's a nitro crate that explodes upon being touched. But the most notable thing about the boxes in this game is that you need to break every single one in the level to get a gem, which is needed for completion of the game. The box mechanic is definitely interesting. Combining a platforming mechanic and a collectible is just a cool idea, and it's one of the key factors of the Crash franchise. Hey, that's my alarm. You know what that means. Time to talk about some mediocre boss fights. The bosses for this game, in my opinion, are fine. They're good. Most of them are pretty fun, and others are just frustrating. I mean, let's be honest. Most games I've played recently just have mediocre bosses, and Crash is no exception. Now, I really love the original Crash, but it's not as polished as other games. But maybe a sequel will fix that. Crash Bandicoot 2. Wow, this game is a whole footstep better than Crash Bandicoot 1. Most problems I had with the original game were fixed. There's less 2D section, there's more control options, and the game has a whole lot more personality all around. But first of all, the thing we didn't know we needed, because someone back in 1997 had a very specific wish after seeing a shooting star. Because this game has sliding, and it's kinda shocking how much smoother this game feels. If it wasn't a disease-ridden rodent, I would kiss Crash Bandicoot, that's how good he feels. But that's where most of my compliments end, because this game's not perfect. In fact, I could even describe it as flawed. Instead of having a wide variety of different locations, they just recycled 5 different locations between 26 levels, to the point where I don't even really want to play the next stage knowing that, hey, it's gonna be the exact same design-wise as the one I played before. Crash 1 had a problem with this too, but it was nowhere near as bad as this game, which is probably because of the one whole year the creators had to make Crash 2. I can barely reheat spaghetti in under a year, so how are people supposed to make a game in that time? Also, the bosses, they're better in this game. So what makes Crash 2 stand out from its predecessor? Well, at the end of the day, not too much. It's definitely a better game than Crash 1, but it just seems like a more polished version of the same game, which a lot of people might disagree with, but this game is just missing something that makes it special. I really think Crash 2 is fun, but my opinion changes on it every time I play it. And at the end of the day, yeah, it's a footstep better than Crash, but it's still Crash. But hey, similar to Nooses and Cyanide, sequels are made for fixing mistakes. And while Crash Bandicoot 2 did that to an extent, let's see if Crash Bandicoot 3 does a better job at that. So this game takes place in the year all of the fucking years, because time travel is the name of this game. All the stages take place in some sort of historic time, whether it's ancient China, medieval times, or 1950. And I just love this. I bitched about the stages all looking similar before, but not only are the stages more unique in this game, but they're all visually super cool. And finally, this game has colour. The first 2 games had a decent amount of colour if your favourite colours are green, and black. Of course there are some standouts in those games, but still, 3 just trumps those games. Also, I know I've been bitching about how the bosses in Crash aren't great, but I'm happy to report Crash 3 has some pretty interesting bosses. A lot of them are just wait, then attack, but they all functionally are effective. Also, after beating a boss, you get a new ability which helps keep the game fresh. And these abilities are a super belly flop, which creates a shockwave every time you body slam, a double jump, which surprisingly gives you 2 jumps. There's the death tornado, which gives you the ability to use your spin attack to glide in the air, the fruit bazooka, which is a bazooka that shoots fruit, and the crash dash, which gives you the run button. So these are pretty useful, but they're not all on the same level. The double jump helps tremendously, while the super belly flop is about as useful as a kidney stone. Now this game has a wide variety of different game styles. Water levels, airplane levels, levels where you run from things, jet ski levels, motorbike levels, and of course regular platforming levels. And this wide variety of playstyles helps and hinders the experience. It can be fun changing up your playstyle by playing something a little different, but then again, sometimes you just want to play vanilla Crash. But then the game says, you're gonna play a water level now. You can choose the order you play levels in a world, circumnavigating this problem a little bit, but at the end of the day, you still have to progress, and you're gonna have to play other playstyles whether you like it or not. But nonetheless, Crash Bandicoot 3 is definitely the best game in the series, at least for me. The first 2 games had their perks, but they're both very flawed. And while the second game was an improvement, it still has some major downsides. But when it comes to Crash Bandicoot, it's kinda hard to hate. They're all just too fun and charming to want to rag on for 2/3 of a review. Oh wait. But anyways, I really like the Crash games, and it's helped me discover a side of myself that I've never realized. I'm a furry! What's my persona, you ask? Well, the eagle, of course.
Dr. Cortex is a genius, a mental aberration. He's totally fixated on world domination. The local island creatures are dull and obtuse. Until the evil doctor turns on the juice. He wants them for his troops. They come out nincompoops, most especially Crash Bandicoot. Should have been a genius, but he doesn't quite compute. Crash Bandicoot. Anything can happen now that Crash is in pursuit. Tom has been selected for running through the blender. Crash will fight to save her. He'll never surrender. He'll vanquish any villain to set his girlfriend free. He doesn't have a clue about how to proceed. His heart's in the right place. His brain's been rearranged unsuccessfully. Crash Bandicoot. If Cortex isn't beaten, he'll reign absolute. Crash Bandicoot. Play our game and tell your friends so we'll make lots of loot.